Have you ever planned a vacation, spent all your time doing research about hotels and places to see and things to eat, and then you make all your reservations and then you find yourself counting the days until you can go away on your trip that you've planned? And you go on the trip and it's great, but right afterwards you have to return to the monotony of your everyday. It's over. There's nothing to look forward to anymore. And it's kind of just over. And this idea of this anticipation that you feel when you've booked the trip, that's the thrill of the chase. Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about inspiration in photography and just a few different things you could try to keep yourself going, and a little bit about my philosophy as to how I shoot street photography and just keep things interesting. I'm going to tell you up front that this one is going to be quite philosophical and a little bit actually theoretical, because I'm going to be putting in things that I learned about while at university, which don't actually directly apply to photography, but I think that you could make the argument that it's at least tangentially related. Blueberry was being a menace, so I had to go grab her. Anyway, so let's start off a little bit about the actual thing that I think is most important with street photography and why I love doing street photography and documentary photography in general. And I think that it's just that the thing that you can take away from learning to do this type of photography is that it really makes you better at observing the world and just looking at everything that's going on. It just makes you appreciate that and just tunes you in sort of to the fact that there are people and whole ecosystems out there that are living their lives, and it just sort of makes you more aware of that. You don't see the world so much as just somewhere that you also happen to exist, but you see it as a series of different stories that are playing themselves out in front of you. It just tunes you into the fact that this whole world has sort of its own heartbeat that you may not always be paying attention to. So I know that sounds really kind of mumbo jumbo, hokey pokey, but that's sort of what I feel like about street photography and what's so great about being out there and really just getting to observe. But that's sort of akin to some quotes you've probably heard of, things that are like, I think Stephen Curry once said something like, "The camera is my passport," something like that. Yeah, this is exactly. It just boils down to that same sort of thing, which is that the camera is just a tool that enables you to be privy to these things that already exist. And now to get to the title of the video and what I think sort of keeps me going and I think might help you, is that sort of this idea of the thrill of the chase. You're going out there every day, and this is something that I do. I go out and walk the same general area near my house, and I'll walk, maybe one day I'll walk north, one day I'll walk south, but it's usually around the same time of day, or whenever I think that the light is nice or something interesting is happening somewhere, or just picking a direction and walking. And it's every day, it's the same sort of neighborhood, but I keep finding new things that are interesting, because in my head I'm just thinking, there's something out there. I'm trying to find the perfect picture or the perfect scene, but I know for a fact that there's no such thing, right? I know that this whole idea of looking for the perfect shot is just something that keeps you going. It's just an idea of that, you have something to strive towards, but it's also something that's sort of out of reach. And I want to sort of connect this vaguely to something I learned while taking an English course at university, which was sort of talking about how in writing, and I suppose probably in life and just psychology, there's an idea of an object of desire, and the most fun is, or the entire play or book or whatever is written around encircling that object of desire. You're supposed to get close to achieving or fulfilling that desire, but you never actually do, because once you fulfill it, you're done. Like you've achieved everything you want, so there's nothing more to look forward to. So that's sort of like a vague way of saying, like when you're trying to write like some sort of horror or a thriller or suspense, you want to keep the audience on the edge of their seat. You want to write so that you're sort of revealing little details of the horror, but you're not just showing them what it is. Because the second you pull the rug off, it's, when you're aware of all the magic, like what the answer is, the mystery, the suspense, it's all gone. Now, I'm not saying that, I fully agree with this, but I understand a lot of what it's saying, and it makes a lot of sense that you need something to look forward to keep yourself motivated to keep going. So yeah, this whole idea of the thrill of the chase is something that maybe you should try to incorporate into your life, your walks every day, because you don't have to go out looking for something specific, but having some sort of goal, or just the idea that that if you go out there you're going to see something interesting, is enough to sort of give you that push to get out the door. And if you don't get out the door, you can't be taking the pictures that you want to be taken. But you can of course take pictures at home, and I advocate for that too, because your home, your space, your life is just as important to document as the outside world is. Street photography is for the street, but documentary photography can be anywhere, right? So that's part one, which is the idea of the chase. Part two is about projects. And projects are another really, really great way to keep yourself motivated. And it doesn't have to necessarily be, I use project in a vague sense. It doesn't actually have to be specifically a project. It just has to be sort of an idea, a spark, something to keep you interested, something to focus your work. Because, when you have too much options, sometimes it can just be overwhelming. This whole idea of like the thrill of the chase doesn't just apply to the work that you do, but it applies to like, everything from gear to everything else. It's not too often that you're 100% fulfilled with anything like your camera or anything like that. I hope that you are. I mean, I feel like in many ways I am right now, but there's always a little voice in the back of your head that's like, you could get like this or that, like, add another lens, add another flash or whatever, or get a new body. That is fine. Like sometimes it's okay to strive towards something. Like I said earlier in one of my videos, partially why I never wanted to buy a really expensive camera when I first started out is because I didn't think I'd earned it, and it was something that I would have to work my way towards. And now maybe I feel more like I've earned the ZF that I'm using now. But do I think that I've earned some sort of Hasselblad or Leica? Probably not. But if I could afford one, sure, maybe. But it's like giving yourself these goals to strive towards is useful. But let's talk about that in terms of photos and projects and ideas. So, your project could just be something for yourself, something you don't intend on showing anywhere, but it could also be something that you want to produce physically, like a series of prints or a gallery show or a zine or a book. And this just sort of gives you an idea that you can work towards, and that's something that can also just really light the fire under you to keep going, because it's easy to get caught up in everything else. But if you have that direction, that focus, it just keeps you, wanting to go out and take the pictures to bring that to life. To that end, let's talk a little bit about some broad ideas that you can try out if you're looking for inspiration. Number one is the tried and true standard, which is that one camera, one lens sort of thing, where, if you have multiple cameras or multiple lenses, you just pick one setup and you just stick to that. Ideally a prime, but a zoom is fine too, I guess. But that'll just, reduce the amount of choices you have to make when you go out there, which is nice. Number 2 is to shoot black and white entirely, for a period. It could be a month, a year, a week, it doesn't matter. It's entirely up to you, whatever you're comfortable with. Another one, which I really like, is the, where you should pick a point of interest. It could be a neighborhood, it could be a street, could be even like all the subway stations. Some great books are out there that are just so pointed. Recently, I've seen some very interesting ones. I'll talk a little bit about some of the ones that I'm aware of. So there's this guy named Rob Stephenson. He's Rob Steve Photo on Instagram. I'll be putting links in the description, but also I'll be putting some of the work up with links on the video now. He does this series, which is really cool, where he's visiting every neighborhood in New York City and taking pictures of each one. I don't actually read the little newsletter that he puts out, but he does put out like a Substack newsletter for it every time that he releases. I don't know if it's there's some schedule, I'm sure, but I just see it periodically on Instagram, and sometimes I'll go look through the pictures because it's really cool. I wish I was doing more of the reading. I've been kind of bad about that recently, so I'll trying to be better. But that's really cool. That's a really cool project. It's such a cool idea to visit, like make the city that you live in more interesting by breaking it down into all these areas, and just a good way for you to go out and explore all the different corners of it. So super cool idea, something you might consider taking a look at or even trying yourself. Another couple of ones, which I'm not sure what the names of the photographers are, but I've seen, I'm sure maybe you've come across it because it's quite popular by now. I've seen 2 separate ones that you don't even have to leave your house for. One was by this photographer who took pictures of, I think it's a table tennis table in a park that's right by their home, and they could see it through a window, and they took pictures of it in like all seasons and people using it for different things. Could have just been a picnic table. Pictures on the screen now, so you should be able to see it. But it's really cool, and it just sort of, they picked a point of interest that they knew was getting good traffic, and they just sort of documented how it was different things to different people, different groups. Sometimes it's just a place to rest, sometimes it's a place to play a game, sometimes it's a place to have a whole picnic or something. And it's just a nice idea. There's another one where I think this photographer took pictures of his wife going to work every day from their window, which is just what a wholesome idea. I don't know very much about these people beyond these photo series. I'm just putting them out there. Maybe there's more to see, maybe there isn't. But it's just an idea, just something to give you some direction. So it doesn't really matter what your end goal or medium of release is, if there even is a release. But I'll tell you a little bit about a project that I'm working on right now, which has to do with the Hudson's Bay. So the Hudson's Bay Company is a big department store chain in Canada, and they're currently in the process of mostly going out of business. They've liquidated a lot of their stores, and they're liquidating one here in Ottawa, in downtown Ottawa. There's one at the Retail Center, and it's been there for a really long time. It's actually, I think, home to one of the oldest, or probably the oldest escalator in Ottawa. So I've just been going by there at different times since they announced that they were going to close that store down, and they've been putting up different signs, and just people have been going through and just trying to buy all the things while they're on crazy sales. And I've just been trying to document some of that. I'm not necessarily doing a really great job, in my opinion, either, because I've just been going there sort of like by coincidence many times. I had the idea since I heard that it was going to happen, but I'm also not extremely invested in this project. I go out there every day to take pictures regardless of a project, but it was just something to keep myself like, it's a little bit of a change from what I'm doing all the time, which is documenting the streets, which is also another thing that you can get out of a project, is just a little change up the things that you're doing, just give you a different rhythm, which is nice, So I've been going to the Hudson's Bay, just happen to end up there every now and then, and every time I'm there, I take a few pictures, and each time I've got, you know, some sort of different setup going. Either like I have my wide lens, or I have the 40 millimeter, or sometimes I'm only shooting film on there. So it's just, you know, it's a toss up, but I think by now I've got a pretty decent amount of pictures that sort of show what I'm trying to get at. But I'm gonna keep trying until you know, the opportunity is gone, because it's gonna close, I think, at the end of the month. So it's not like there's very many days left. But, you know, that's just an idea, just a little project to keep things going. And, you know, kind of mild a segue into the third point for, you know, inspiration, which I think you may have sort of gotten from the last one a little bit, is to change things up. Try something new, try something different. If you're primarily shooting street or documentary, maybe you should go out and try and shoot some nature or a landscape, or maybe some portraits. Something that I do in general is I just do everyday street photography. But in the last few months, what I've been trying to do, because I live quite centrally in Ottawa, is to try and document more things that I hear about that are happening. So I just, you know, when there was a parking structure collapse, or when the Tulip Festival is going on, or when the Hudson's Bay is closing, you hear about these things in your local area, and you just go out there and try to take pictures of that. So I've been trying to do a little bit more of that documentary kind of almost journalism style, but I'm not a journalist. I'm not going to pretend to be a journalist. I just mean something that's newsworthy, or something that's more just like, you know, worth a headline, versus something that you just think looks pretty, or something that you just take for yourself. This was more of like a public interest kind of photography. But, you know, it's just nice to try different things. If you're primarily a portrait photographer, maybe you should go out there and try and shoot some street. Yeah. Overall, though, a lot of yapping to make my, you know, point, which is that the chase, the thrill of the chase, you know, the love for taking the photos comes from that love of like observing the world and just chasing that high of getting a good picture, you know? Like it's both like meaningless, because, you know, the picture is good is entirely a subjective thing, but it's also what keeps you going. So it's nothing and it's everything, that thrill of the chase, to take that, you know, shot that just makes you go, oh yeah, now I gotta do that again. You know, at the end of the day, it's about having fun, and sometimes you just need some changes to have that fun. So hopefully these ideas can keep it fresh for you, keep it exciting. You know, go out there and, you know, enjoy the world, just observe everything that you can, take it all in, and, you know, just at the end of the day, good luck on your photos, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.